Democrats are horrified. They're panicked as they're beginning to realize that the Trump train is unstoppable. They're calling it the slow motion coup, and at least one leftist is sounding the alarm that it's turning into a runaway train. In this video, what we're going to do is we're going to look at what they're calling a coup. We're going to see why the left believes Trump is becoming unstoppable, and stick with me to the very end of this video when I'll reveal what's really happening that has the Democrats rightly terrified. You're not. You don't want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here with you. Great to be with you as always. Before we dive in here, I want to see you in person in Phoenix, Arizona for our next stop on the American Freedom Tour. I'll be there with Donald Trump Jr. and Candace Owens and Kayleigh McEnany on November 19th and 20th. And I want to see that arena filled with Turley talkers. So make sure to join me in Phoenix by clicking on the link below to register. And to make it even sweeter, if you're one of the first 200 people to click on that link and register, you're going to be invited to our exclusive Friday night Turley Talks live Q&A, where you can meet me, my team, you can get a photo with me, and we'll be raffling off a dinner with all of us at Turley Talks. But they're going quickly, so don't wait. Plus, anyone who signs up gets some super amazing bonuses, including my best-selling book bundle, and the first 50 of you will get an official Turley Talks t-shirt. Make sure to click on that link below, and I can't wait to see you in Phoenix. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. One of the key motifs that's arisen among leftists is the notion that Trump and the GOP are launching what they're calling a slow motion coup. And this supposed coup is happening at two levels. First, it involves Trump taking over the Republican Party, which he's done by amassing an astonishing war chest. To Save America PAC has outraised the Republican National Committee almost 2-1. So Trump now controls the purse strings of the GOP. And then secondly, Trump is directing Republican legislatures across the nation to pass all of these so-called voter suppression laws, which will be solidified when the GOP takes over Congress in 2022 midterms. So with all this voter suppression instituted throughout the nation, that will then set up Trump's triumphal return in 2024. That's what's being labeled as the slow motion coup by leftists. Now, there's obviously a different explanation for what's happening with Trump and the GOP, which I'll get into at the end of this video. But the reason this is important is because the left is now panicking like never before. That slow motion coup meme, as far as the left is concerned, is simply no longer adequate to describe the conditions that are shaping up for 2022 and 2024. And so at least one author at the ultraleftsalon.com is sounding the alarm that that supposed slow motion coup is indeed turning into a runaway train. It's a hysterical piece for sure, but I think it captures well the kind of panic that's beginning to set in among the far left as they recognize how our nation is more and more being realigned and recalibrated around the MAGA-based America First agenda. There are 4 Trumpian trends that are all happening simultaneously, and they're all absolutely panicking the left as we speak. 4 trends by which they see this Trump coup playing out. First and foremost, you have significant and sweeping changes going on right now as we speak in state legislatures in terms of changing or clarifying their constitutional standards for conducting elections. What we have to understand is that state legislatures constitutionally have what's called plenary authority to determine how elections are conducted in terms of the time, place, and manner of their own choosing. But as we so rudely found out in November 2020, many of those states like Pennsylvania, Georgia, and the like, they acquiesced that authority. They farmed it out, as it were. They sublet it to various state agencies like the Secretary of State and elections commissions, and the legislators basically stayed out of it. Well, no more. States like Pennsylvania, Texas, South Carolina, Georgia, they're all implementing very strict guidelines and protocols to clarify and streamline any gray areas in their respective constitutions regarding how elections are to be conducted, such that state legislatures now have restored their constitutionally mandated oversight regarding elections. And it's so fascinating because the leftists over at Salon believe that this measure alone will allow state legislatures to determine the election winners regardless of the actual vote and the will of the people. In other words, Leftists are panicked that the 30 Republican legislatures that dominate our electoral map are going to step in and basically nitpick the legality of the vote until their candidates win every single time. Again, the shocking naivete here, of course, is that that's precisely what patriots are accusing leftist secretaries of state of doing. I mean, you'll recall Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger actually made a secret deal with the Democratic Party of Georgia to basically remove the chain of custody precedent of mail-in ballots. That's why there were so little mail-in ballot rejections in November. In 2016, 5% of mail-in ballots in Georgia were rejected. In 2020, it was as low as 0.03%, even though there were 6 times more ballots sent in. And this all goes back to this utterly indefensible consent decree that this Rhino Secretary of State signed in an agreement with that radical leftist activist Stacey Abrams that removed the safeguards and the vetting protocols for mail-in ballots. So ironically, the far left here is accusing these state legislatures of doing precisely what they've been champions of. So that's the first thing, right? We're seeing state legislators across the nation reassert their constitutional role as overseers of elections and removing that power from secretaries of state. Secondly, the now infamous voter suppression laws, okay? That's right. Laws designed to uphold the legal integrity of every single vote are, of course, now being relabeled as Jim Crow Part 2 by the far left. And that's only because they're doing exactly what they were designed to do, provide objective safeguards against voter fraud. 19 red states have enacted election integrity laws fundamentally opposed to those of blue states. Among those, 15 states have radically reduced the ability to even apply for a mail-in ballot. 4 states have gotten rid of drop boxes altogether. Nearly 10 states have imposed stricter voter ID requirements. So that's their second big concern. Thirdly, Republican gerrymandering across the country is all but guaranteeing GOP dominance for the foreseeable future. We have to realize Republicans are busy redistricting the nation's congressional districts in such a way that the Democrats just simply can't compete with. This is why they're so panicked. Remember, the Republicans dominated the state legislatures in 2020. And that means that they can redraw congressional districts all over the map in such a way that they may actually be poised to dominate the House for the next decade. And this is because the GOP is now in complete control of state houses and governorships that will end up redrawing maps for 188 congressional districts, which represents 50% of all districts in the nation. So Republicans already have control over a number of districts outside that 50%. So that means that Republicans will now control the vast majority of congressional districts, which means that the Democrats may have no chance to compete in House races for the foreseeable future. Again, the left is utterly panicked over this, as they ought to be. And then fourthly and final concern, before we get into that, gang, do you like this shirt? Well, make sure you click on the link below. We got some brand new Let's Go Brandon shirts that you're going to absolutely love. Plus, a whole host of Patriot designs. Are a limited edition. They're not going to be around for long, so don't wait. Click on the link below and get one for yourself, your friends. They're going to love you for it. Sorry, I just had to mention that. All right. So their fourth and final concern is, of course, it's called the so-called big lie. Trump continues to hammer the integrity of our elections, which in effect renders illegitimate our democratic institutions. You will definitely want to check out a video I did on why the Arizona audit changes everything. I'll link it down below for you in the pinned comment section as well to watch after this one. Because there I noted that one of the things that the left is absolutely panicked about is how Trump and the MAGA movement are totally weakening Biden and the Democrats and completely disrupting their ability to govern by constantly undermining their legitimacy. Now, of course, that claim is ironic given the 3.5 years and $30 million wasted dollars surrounding the whole Russian collusion hoax that the left and the mainstream media perpetrated precisely to undermine the legitimacy of Trump's presidency. But the point here is that as far as the left is concerned, the Arizona audit is doing precisely what it was meant to do, which is basically to cripple Biden and the Democrats. And it has, and I give you a deep dive into that with that video link down below. And so here's the bottom line for so many leftists. What's happening right before our very eyes with these 4 simultaneous trends is that the Trump-dominated GOP is actively and deliberately taking over our election process, a takeover that will be completed with the likely red wave coming in the 2022 midterms. And that takeover will then set the stage for Trump's return in 2024. That's the so-called slow-motion coup that leftists over at Salon and CNN's Jim McCausland and others are so panicked about that they think is now turning into a runaway train. In reality, what's actually happening, unfortunately for the left, is that the world is changing. It's moving away from the liberal utopian ideologies that so dominated the 20th century, and it's moving more towards nationalism, populism, and traditionalism, precisely the kind of MAGA-based politics championed by Trump and patriots all across the nation. The left seems incapable of understanding that very organic movement from globalism to nationalism in any other way than as authoritarian and duplicitous. But it's also quite apparent that the left is slowly realizing that such hysterics are utterly powerless in the face of such a massive political and cultural paradigm shift. Liberalism is dead. A new conservative age is rising. And there's nothing, absolutely nothing, the bygone era of the left can do to stop it. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out that video on why the Arizona audit changes everything. You're not going to want to miss it, so make sure to click on that link, and I will see you over there. God bless.